All right, and we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from the Lakers Fast Break, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, and of course, Pop Culture Cosmos. Thank you so much for listening to all of our great shows. Yes, the NBA is still on lockdown. The Lakers are still on lockdown. It's getting pretty serious out there with the quarantines and the closings of all the stuff that's going on around the country and around the world, for that matter, due to the coronavirus. And it's getting very serious indeed. I hope you and your loved ones are healthy at this point in time. But here to talk to me today about some things that are a little bit, hopefully, a little bit better off than what's going on with the coronavirus is my good friend. I know him as Tom Wong, but you know him as the man behind LakerHolics.net. You got to be part of the conversation today at LakerHolics.net. It is LakerTom. And LakerTom, good to have you back on. But I'll tell you what, some of these people are crazy out there. I'll go off on it in a minute here.
That's right. I agree with you 100% there, Gerald. These are really trying times, and the only way we're going to get through this intact is if everybody pulls in the same direction. And right now, there are a lot of people out there that don't seem to be pulling at all. So you're going to be preaching to the choir, man. That's all I can say.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm out today because going to get supplies needed for my family. I've got the gloves on. I've got the mask on. In fact, I think the Las Vegas Review Journal, I think, took a picture of me today, and they kind of interviewed me today. So, but I hope that's not the picture that they put up of me with the mask on. But it's going to be right there, plastered on the front page, I bet. Can't wait for that one. But they're talking to me and whatnot. But then I'm going throughout my morning and trying to get supplies, Costco, Walmart, trying to do that type of thing. And out and about, I see this lackadaisical attitude by people that they don't seem to care. You still see a group of people just hanging out by the Dutch Brothers coffee, just, drinking their coffee, drinking their Java, drinking their hot chocolate, whatever. And I go out and I see other people that are just like coughing, not covering their mouths with their elbow or anything like that. They're just sneezing, just anywhere they want to go, any direction they want to go. And the worst thing is, I live near a golf course, right? And I'm going by this golf course on the way home after, spending all morning trying to go ahead and get some supplies. Couldn't even get everything I needed because, you know what? It's sold out everywhere. And on my way home, there's people playing golf, my age and your age. I can't believe it. Like in the prime area where it's killing a lot of people, they're out playing golf like it's nothing. I don't get it.
They're following the example set by our president, who I was just listening, gave himself a 10 out of 10 for his handling of the coronavirus.
Tom, I want to go ahead and not continue this podcast without a sick stomach here. So just please, we'll just leave it at that. Okay. I know we want to go out and try hard to stay away from the political platform. And I know your thoughts on that, and I'm not going to say mine are not dissimilar to yours, because maybe they are, but I will just say this. The horse is already out of the barn. The only thing you can try to do is contain it as best you can and take the steps to try and lessen the effect or spread it out over a long period of time. You obviously don't want what's happened in China and what happened in Italy and to happen to you. And this could very well be something. I've heard the stuff all the time where we're 7 days behind Italy. So that means that by the time we talk this week, it could be a catastrophic proportions, which scares the living you-know-what out of me. And I tell you what, people have just got to be more sensible about these things. Have some common sense. This is a highly contagious disease. I've heard up to twice as contagious as the regular influenza strains and all that. So I tell you, LakerTom, when you're out there, and I know you're out there very much. I mean, do you have a fear of these people who just don't seem to give a damn?
Yeah, I do. I think, and this is just basically for anybody who's listening to our podcast, because I think that I've spent a lot of time and I've violated some of the longtime rules on LakerHolics.net about talking about non-basketball stuff. But how to take care of you and how we should be approaching this tragedy of the coronavirus is something I think is really important. Couple of things that I think really everybody's got to recognize. The first is that the people who are most contagious are those who have not been symptomatic yet. And they've proven that. They've got studies now that show that you're much more likely to catch it from somebody who doesn't have any symptoms. And so that's the first thing that everybody's got to realize, that in their statistics, when they compared China versus Italy, that clearly show that the age group that is most prevalent in spreading the virus is 20 to 29. Those are the same idiots that you see out in the crowds, that lining up at the bars and lining up in Mardi Gras to go out and have their time and so forth. These are the people who are the most contagious. They don't have any symptoms yet. So they not only don't show and exhibit any symptoms, but they tend to think then that means that they don't have it yet. And the fact is that if they have it, they're almost twice as virulent as anybody who's showing symptoms. And that age group just jumps out as the age group when they test, that are the people that are the most symptomatic and the most causing the spread of the disease. And so this whole thing about, I mean, this is why the city of New York and the city of Los Angeles have closed the bars and closed the gyms.
And Las Vegas is closing the hotels.
You know, because in the movie theaters, because these are you just can't go on with life as usual. And the whole thing about how many people are going to get it, you probably can't stop people from eventually getting it, but what you can do is spread it out over a period of time so that our hospitals, our emergency rooms, and our doctors and our first responders are not overwhelmed, because that's the real big danger, because then all of a sudden people who have other diseases and other medical problems start to pay the price, and you get the death toll rising up like that. That's unnecessarily if we were to control the entire situation.
Or unless you get the situation like they do in Italy, where they have to make choices on who is going to live and who is going to die. And go ahead.
So anyway, I just, anybody who's listening to this podcast, isolate yourself as much as you can. Order online if you can. Don't go in. I mean, the crowds in the grocery stores and making people trying to think that they can stick in an airline trip somewhere, or they can go to the gym, or they can go to a religious ceremony or anything. Postpone those things. The main thing that you have to do, and for sure, is don't go and visit your older parents and so forth. And don't go and just socialize the way that you did before, thinking that just because you don't have symptoms, you're okay and you're not going to give it to anybody else. Because the simple fact is, the more that you're active, the more the chances that you're going to infect somebody else. And it comes down to the simpler things of life that you really want to do. I mean, let's talk basketball.
Absolutely.
What are the chances that we're going to, you know, the NBA now has stopped things for 30 days. That's not going to be the end of it. We're not going to see a playoff start in 30 days.
No, they're actually
going to be lucky if we don't cancel the entire season.
And they're actually talking about right now, they're hoping for a best case scenario is starting up the league in June. Yeah, late June. But on the final note on the coronavirus, please, as CNN said in an article, because it's obviously a lot of people are trying to do it, can you stop calling 911 when you run out of toilet paper? Please. Please. Please.
It's amazing, you know.
I'll tell you what, it's just incredible the way that this world has devolved in such a short period of time. It's just utterly, I don't know. Sometimes I just can't even find the words. We find a new low, and then we go even lower. But on to the basketball news. Let's try to focus on whatever's good that we can on the rest of this podcast. You know, now that everybody's on like a down low note, you know, let's bring them back up a little bit more with some good talk about the Lakers. And like I said before, the Lakers are targeting, the NBA is targeting a mid-June, late June type scenario as a best case scenario. I want to ask your opinion on that. Knowing what you know, and doing the research and checking the news constantly and seeing the updates and whatnot, how feasible is a June starting date for a modified season or modified playoff format for the NBA?
I think it's viable. I think that there's a real strong push by the NBA owners to not cancel the season. Because that would really, I mean, even when we had the labor outage and everything, we still finished the season, still crowned a champion. And it's hard, it's hard when you're a Lakers fan versus, let's say, imagine you're a Warriors fan. I've heard Warriors fans say, hey, no problem, let's cancel the season. By the time we get back to the new season, we'll have avoided the worst injury situation that we've ever had. And as a Laker fan, I know there's a certain amount of selfishness in your feeling that after 6 years of missing the playoffs and everything, we finally claw our way to the top of the power rankings in almost every NBA rating, and then we run into the coronavirus. And there's a sense of injustice to that I know sounds silly and pathetic when you compare it to the tragedy that's happening in the entire world and in our country. But the simple fact is that I selfishly want the Lakers to have their chance. I want LeBron to have his chance at 35 to get that championship. I want to see the team win one for Kobe. And I'd hate to see the season get canceled. So for me, it's really encouraging and good news that the Lakers and the NBA owners are hoping that they can restart things in late August, be able to or in late June, and be able to finish the season in late August. They may have to shorten next season by starting it late, or we may, as a result of the whole thing, because baseball's in the same situation, we may see some restructuring of when the professional sports season start and end. There's a big overlap that we have in October where, and sometimes it's almost too much. You got Major League Baseball playing the World Series, you got the NBA in the heart of the season, and you got the NBA starting out with training camps. Maybe we'll see a restructuring of everything. We may not see people shaking hands again in the future for a long time. So there's a lot of things that this is going to change. I mean, it feels like we're in the middle of a dystopian drama that's on television, not just a single movie, but a long series that you may have spent a lot of time binge watching for months, as it appears. My own personal guess is 50-50 that they may cancel the season. I think the one encouraging thing is that there's only 3 NBA players at this point in time that I've heard have tested positive. And I'm sure that, unlike most of us in the general population, the NBA's managed to get their test done on all of the players. So that's an encouraging sign, because if they can keep those players isolated, then at least they have the capacity to go into a closed gym in late June and run maybe 8 games to get everybody back in shape and the game shape and start the playoffs. I think that's a good possibility. I think the only thing that could derail it at this point in time would be if a whole lot of players all of a sudden got sick. Or alternatively, if things were so dismal in the world that it almost would seem like an affront on humanity to go out and have a sporting event like that happen. Maybe if we're in a time of mourning at that point in time that's so bad that could kill the season too. And at that point in time, then the NBA becomes really inconsequential, and the Lakers just tough luck, man. Go on next year and try to do it again. It could even, in fact, the worst case scenario would be that professional sports might postpone not only the whole year, but on into the next season. That's totally possible. So I'm trying to look at it from a positive standpoint that our current administration is finally, hopefully, having to see the light. And after wasting 6 weeks and making all sorts of decisions to depress testing so that they wouldn't see the stats, hopefully we'll get ahead of the testing curve and we'll make some decisions. I think that I still think that there probably should be curfews everywhere, that they should cut it down. This whole Republican attitude that the way to deal with this crisis is to let every state make its own decisions is such a pile of crap that I can't even, it just infuriates me to think about that whole standpoint. The government needs to come out and do what they can do to stop this right now, to break the curve down, to flatten it out, and hopefully to keep people isolated until such point in time as we really see the virus start to go down. If they don't do that, they're kidding themselves, and they're going to extend it longer, and it's going to hurt more people, and it's going to, it already is tearing at the fabric of society. I mean, I haven't been to a grocery store. I drove by 3 of them on my way to go on my hike today. And every single grocery store I drove by, the parking lots were just jammed. So you probably have a better firsthand things that you went out for supplies today. I went online to try to order some things, and most of the stuff I wanted to order was already sold out and unavailable through Amazon.
You're probably seeing, when you go to the stores, about 30 to 40% of the stores sold out in each location at this point in time. And it's all the necessities, all the things that, you know,
Right.
you would consider if you're going to go ahead and be isolated. Canned food's gone, you know, chicken gone, milk mostly gone, rice gone, you know, a lot of things. Water obviously is at a premium. Yes, toilet paper, paper towels, you know, the whole 9 yards. The necessities are all very hard to come by at this point in time. And yeah, it's just kind of, you know, is down at this point in time. But you know what? We got to go ahead and keep going forward as a country, as a nation, as a world, and see what we can do to try and make things better for the long term, and try to work with each other to, you know what, to try and beat this thing. I didn't say it was going to be beaten over the course of a night, but hopefully, if, you know, God willing, we can beat this thing together and come through it on the other side, you know, even stronger as a you know, as a species, is what I'm looking forward to. Hopefully one day that we can just, you know, get our heads out of the water and realize, you know what, if we work together, anything's possible.
Well, you know, I've always been the glass 3/4 full guy.
And you know what, that sounds like we're almost the whole opposite at this point. What do you know?
Yeah.
I think
It is. I mean,
I'm
I'm usually a total optimist.
yes, maybe I'm
So
not.
here's some optimistic things to look at. Okay. First off, I will say it. This increases the chance that Donald Trump is going to be gone. That's something that's really got to be a reason for smiling. Secondly, let's talk about the Lakers. What happens if the Lakers? I wrote an article for Medium and for the Laker.net site.
And that's what I was going to lead into.
Okay.
You wrote an article recently on medium.com, and people need to check it out today. If the 2020 NBA season is canceled, and that is a possibility, like you said, 50-50, and I think that's probably about right, 50-50 at this point in time. What will the 2021 Lakers look like? I mean, because you've got a skewed salary cap to deal with. You've got a lot of free agents you got to deal with. Some holdovers, obviously, because you have a lot of them were signed to 2-year contracts, but there are some important free agents, including one Anthony Davis, for starters. So, you know, if they haven't checked out your awesome article in detail on medium.com, what is that answer?
Well, my answer is I think that the Lakers are going to be in a great position, frankly. And you can take it step by step. I think the first thing is that the season this summer was already being looked at as a very soft free agency summer. There are only like 4 or 5 teams, and none of them competitive teams. None of them are playoff teams that have cap space to sign a max player. And then other than Anthony Davis, there really weren't any super elite players available. Everybody was geared toward 2021 rather than this summer, or they spent their money in last summer when we had, you know, all of those 10 sign and trade deals and superstars flying all over the place. So I think to start with, the very first thing is that this probably guarantees that Anthony Davis is going to sign another contract with the Lakers. There's no reason for him to, I mean, he wouldn't be going to Atlanta or one of those cities like that that have it. He's got 8 years in the league, so he's likely to sign probably a 2-year deal with an opt-out at the second year, so that he basically can stay for 2 years and then get the supermax deal based on 30% of the salary, because he'll be a 10-year player, and that gets the maximum amount on the cap. He can go to 35% then of the salary cap. Now the salary cap is an interesting thing too. He may just decide to opt in and keep the salary that he's got in his current contract, because the salary cap is likely to drop 10 to 15, maybe $20 million next year. It's at 115 million was the estimate. There was an article out that was partly written by Eric Pincus, which said there could be a 10 or 15 million dollar drop. Then Eric Pincus came out with his own article, and he was projecting maybe a $20 million drop, so it'd go all the way down to 95 million. Well, that would basically, if it drops down to 95 million, you'd all of a sudden see no team with salary cap money to spend, and a lot of teams who didn't even think they were anywhere close in luxury tax territory. You're going to see players like we've got 4 players on the Lakers, Avery Bradley, and then 3 guys who had no trade clauses because they signed deals that gave them de facto no trade clauses in Rajon Rondo, KCP, and JaVale McGee. So those 4 players all have player options. The chances are probably going to be 100% that they're all going to exercise their player options. The last thing they want to do is end up leaving a championship caliber team and not getting paid as much. So all of a sudden you got those guys in there, and that changes all around the league. I think you're going to see all sorts of players not fail to exercise their player option and then basically want to stay with the teams that they are. I think you're going to see people in general feel that job security is going to become a whole new thing. I read just recently that they're estimating that 50% of the jobs in this country could be at risk. I mean, if you don't work for a company that's going to be a company that can survive this, there's going to be bailouts everywhere that's going to happen. So when you turn back to the Lakers, you look at all of a sudden we got 5 guys under contract. So they're going to be okay. That's LeBron James, Alex Caruso, Danny Green. Who else am I missing? Taylor Horton Tucker. There's one more guy in there.
Quinn Cook, I think, is on a 2 year. Isn't it correct?
Yes, Quinn Cook. No, Quinn has a team option in the second year.
Okay, I thought it was a play option.
Anyway, we got 5 players we have 5 players who have contracts next year. All of them have options that either end at the end of next year. You got 5 players who are basically probably going to exercise their options to stay. You got 2 free agents, DeMarcus Cousins and Dwight Howard, who are likely to re-sign with the Lakers because of the situations. So you got 12 roster spots probably taken up. And since Cousins has already been waived for this year, then you have the opportunity for basically 4 players that are on the roster who probably aren't going to stay with the team, or unless they come out let's put it this way, they're going to be in competition for those last 3 roster spots. And that's your Quinn Cook, Jared Dudley, Quinn Cook, Jared Dudley. Who else are we talking about there? There's 2 more guys that are on that list. At any rate, so you got a lot of competition, and the Lakers basically probably have the best roster in the league. They're ranked in the power rankings right now as the best roster, and they don't have really many needs. What they do need is a point guard. They need a second distributor, a third scorer, and an elite wing defender. And the 2 other guys that I forgot were the 2 new additions, Dion Waiters and Markieff Morris. So I think Morris has a good chance to stay because he's filled the need of the team that wasn't one of those primary 3 needs, but as a small ball stretch 4 and stretch 5, he's become very valuable, I think. But Waiters and Dudley and Cook, they're going to have a hard time struggling for one of those 3 roster spots. And then you basically look at the trade assets the Lakers have. Unlike at the trade deadline this winter, the Lakers are going to have a draft pick. They'll have to wait to deal that draft pick on draft day, but they'll still be able to make a deal that includes that. And then they'll also have three players who were basically had de facto no trade clauses in KCP, JaVale McGee, and Rajon Rondo. And all three of those players now don't have any more de facto trade clause. They can be put into a deal and traded. Chances probably of KCP being traded are slim because he's a Clutch Sports client. And as we know, Clutch Sports clients tend to become part of the family of LeBron James and are very highly unlikely to be traded unless LeBron wanted them traded. But adding to that, I forgot Deion Waiters also is a Clutch Sports client. So that could affect his retention on the team. But at any rate, the Lakers all of a sudden are going to have Kyle Kuzma, and then there's 8 other guys who are basically on one-year contracts. So they're all expiring contracts, and their total salaries are $40 million. So you've got a first-round draft pick, Kyle Kuzma, and $40 million worth of expiring contracts as filler to make a trade. And then the question becomes, who would be interested? Who would the Lakers find interesting? But I think the big point of this whole discussion is it's not going to be free agents that are going to fill those last 3 roster spots. It's probably going to be people that we trade or people on the roster that we end up keeping, like Markieff Morris. What trade targets do you see out there, Gerald? I'm sure you thought of that situation too.
I'm still hoping for Bradley Beal. I think Bradley Beal would be a great.
Bradley Beal would be fabulous,
but I don't think he's within our ballpark. To be honest with you, but
I think you're right about that because, as I said in the article, I think the Lakers don't have the assets in the terms of having a number one draft pick that's a lottery pick, or we don't have multiple draft picks that we can throw in there. We don't have a number 1 overall pick like Andrew Wiggins that the Warriors can parcel as part of a package and so forth. So I think we're probably looking at guys that aren't the very best of the league.
I'm telling you what, superstars. That trade I proposed a long time ago before the trading deadline.
Looks pretty good now, doesn't it?
Looks better and better by the day. Markieff Morris.
Refresh everybody on what that trade was.
Basically, it was Markieff Morris, Derrick Rose, and Christian Wood, who's
broken out like crazy.
Yeah, before Rudy Gobert got him sick, but we won't go there. Yeah, it's those 3 guys at the time, because Christian Wood and Markieff Morris were bench players, and Derrick Rose was also coming off the bench. Both Derrick Rose before the season ended, Derrick Rose and Christian Wood got bumped up to the starting lineup, and those 3 players for Kyle Kuzma and whatever filler 2 or 3 players you have on the back end of the Lakers rotation, pick any 2 of the 3. I would have just been ecstatic because, and the thing is, those the ESPN trade machine that you do that stuff, it's like fun, all that. Obviously, there would be some picks involved and all that, but when you look at it, and it showed me that there was a plus 13 wins on the Lakers side after doing that trade. I was going,
that was before Wood broke off, and
exactly. This was when all 3 were on the bench, bench players, and this was, like I said, but just as a trading deadline was just on the horizon, it wasn't even there yet. So, I should be the GM of the Lakers.
That would have been a good trade, but I tend to agree with you. Bradley Beal would be an ideal target, but there's probably better packages that other people can offer for him.
Oh, I agree.
But there's
unless he wants to be a Laker. If he goes and does the Anthony Davis move, that's a different story because
the guy who wants to be a Laker is an important factor in this whole thing, and that's why my number 1 target would be Zach LaVine. He's a shooting guard. He's athletic, can score. Averages 4 rebounds, 4 assists per game.
A little bit high strung.
He would love to play for the Lakers.
Yeah, gets mad as coach. I know he's from UCLA. I know he's an LA kid, and that's great and all. Does get injured. A little bit susceptible to injury. Did blow out his knee on one occasion. I will give you. See, now we're going back to our normal stuff. Half full, half empty right there for you. So see, now we're going to the pessimist optimist deal thing. And, now it's back to, we're coming back to normal here. But Zach LaVine's a good player.
The glasses are filling up.
Is he the type of game changer for the Lakers? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, he's scoring on a bad team. To me, it's different. I'm going to put Zach.
He's got to accept a different role when you come to the Lakers. He's not going to get the touches and the ball all the time the way he does with the Bulls.
I'm just going to tell you right now. I think
for that premise,
they have similar stats, but I think leaps and bounds. Bradley Beal is a better player than Zach LaVine. I just think he's a better ball handler, better distributor, better shooter from the 3-point area. I just think he's an all-around better player. I think probably a better defender. If
I'm not so sure about the defender thing, but I would agree with you that I think Beal is a better player. But I also think that LaVine is more likely to be willing. I mean, let's go back to it. Goes back to the same thing we were discussing with Marcus versus Markieff Morris. When you've got LeBron James and Anthony Davis, you want to bring in a third player. And the problem is that the Lakers, there's two ways to approach that. One is to get a third guy who, let's say it's Darren Collison, who you talk into compromising his religion and coming back and giving up his ministry for a year and coming back and playing point guard for the Lakers. So he's a good journeyman player, a starter on almost any NBA team, but he's not a star. He's not an all-star. He's not a superstar. The problem I see with the Lakers is that there's an opportunity to get the third star and also to get the guy who's going to be the star when LeBron leaves. Because I don't know how many years you can count on LeBron continuing to just defeat Father Time over and over and over. There's a point in time when there's a point in time when LeBron's going to be gone. The Lakers need to take advantage of being a championship contender at this point in time to try and find somebody who could then be part of that team. And we can get into a discussion a little bit later that the guy I think also is a heavy candidate for that is DeMarcus Cousins. But we need a guard. This is a guards league, It's hard. It's hard for guys to become MVP. Guys like Giannis, because he doesn't have the ball in his hands like LeBron does, or the other people who play point guard or the lead distributor and the ball handler for their teams. So I think it's really important that the Lakers take advantage of the opportunities that they get to add star quality players like DeMarcus Cousins and like Zach LaVine or Bradley Beal. You need to get guys like that because we're going to need them down the road because it's a superstar league. And the reason that the Milwaukee Bucks now have dropped down to number 3 behind the Los Angeles Lakers and behind the Los Angeles Clippers is because they only have one superstar and the Lakers and Clippers have 2. It's that simple. That's exactly where things happen to fall. And there'll be teams that are going to get a third superstar in some manner and form. They'll be able to get somebody. They won't be as lucky as the Warriors, who are able to grow 3 of them and then have be able to get Steph Curry on a cheap contract because of an ankle injury concern, so that they could actually end up with 4 when they got Kevin Durant. That's just an anomaly that you're not going to see. But I think it's important that the Lakers use whatever opportunities they can to bring in as much firepower as they can before LeBron leaves. We saw what happened with Anthony Davis just by himself in New Orleans. It's not enough. It's not enough to win a championship. And when we get into the discussions about who's my favorite Laker, we'll touch on that whole subject again. Who else do you like besides Bradley Beal?
Well, again, I agree with you, guard, but you also want to probably take a look at the wing area because that's something that the Lakers sorely need as well. Somebody who can really do a decent job 2-way on the wing, but those are really a hard commodity to find.
Everybody wants one of them.
Exactly. So it's really kind of difficult to say, oh, I want this person, oh, I want that person, because
one that's in the trade market. Who's on the trade market that falls into that category in your mind?
Exactly. It's going to be hard to say. I mean, somebody would have said if they didn't know he didn't play for the Lakers before, Brandon Ingram. But Brandon Ingram, you saw that experiment didn't work out. He's better off as a fit somewhere else because of the fact that he just cannot play with LeBron, and not everybody can.
I'm wondering if he can play with Zion.
Well, we're going to find out pretty shortly. I mean, so far the results have not been as catastrophically good now that Zion's back as what they've seen. I mean, Zion's been great. He's scoring over 23 points a game.
And Lonzo's been terrific with him.
Yes, but their overall record since Zion's been back is not as impressive as I was hoping it would be. They're still before the season got suspended, they were still 3.5 games behind. Yeah, and I was still at that point in time, the last podcast we had before the season ended, I was still thinking that Memphis was, even with their harder schedule and more difficult schedule, was still going to go ahead and take that last playoff spot, because I think just the numbers were just going to work out in that favor. But, I would probably say they would need to look very hard for a wing. Nobody in specific detail as of yet, but somebody that can play both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
And just be effective in that manner, and then not have to go ahead and worry about, okay, am I only going to get 5 points here? I'm going to get 15 points. They're just consistent.
Yeah, I think that the thing that I get lost on in the chase for the wing, and I think that they will be looking to find a wing defender for sure. Maybe it'll be, but I don't think it's going to be a superstar person at that thing. I think you're probably bringing in more of a journeyman guy, somebody who's, got a good reputation, is a good defender, but isn't an all-world type player. And I think guard is where we really need to bring in somebody who can really become the Kobe Bryant to go along with Anthony Davis down the road. And that would be somebody like Bradley or somebody like Zach LaVine. I think that there's probably going to be quite a bit of turnover, and we'll open up some roster spots with whatever trades we. Some things that really get derailed. You just talked about one of them, by the shortened season, and I think even if we come back in June, they're not going to finish the 20 games that are left. I think it'll be minimal number of games. So all of these teams chasing the number 8 spot. I've heard some talk about the idea that they may do a wild card for the number 8 spot and have a little mini tournament for that. But all of a sudden, the benefit of the season suspension basically are the teams in the number 7 and 8 spots in both the West and the East. There's probably, like Kyle Kuzma. Does that benefit Kyle Kuzma? He didn't get a chance to really show what he could do for the last 20 games. He may be lucky enough that he's got playoffs where he'll get a chance to show whether or not he should be part of the team going forward. And the defense that he's been playing recently and his unselfish play really adds to that. The only problem I see with that is that the Lakers are a stars team, and the Lakers want another star. They don't want to get in a situation where they just have Anthony Davis. So I think, Cousins is going to be important in that stretch. And they will also have a $9 million MLE unless it gets chipped down to $8 million because the salary cap drops down further, which is something that they haven't had because they haven't been at that. They haven't been over the cap before. So they've been under the cap, and then they only get the room exception, which is like half of the full MLE. So they'll have a $9 million exception. They might have to use some of it to pay, depending on where their cap ends up, and they might have to use some of it to bring back guys like Cousins and so forth. But it'll be interesting to see. There's a lot of players who are injured and late in the season where all of a sudden now they may be able to come back in the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe the Warriors will come back with Curry and the whole squad, except for obviously Kevin Durant, who's gone. But they could have Thompson back. So Curry, Thompson, and they won't have Iguodala, of course, but they'll have Curry, Thompson, and Draymond. So that could be all be a sudden thing there. Good thing they're out of the playoffs, as far as I'm concerned. Then you got the Nets. Who knows what's going to happen with the Nets? Maybe both of those guys, maybe Kyrie and KD will both be back. They could be a very dangerous team in the 7 or 8 slot in the East. I mean, who would want to play those guys? And it's funny, you watch Twitter and you see which fans, there's certain fans that are rooting for the season to be canceled already. Like the 76ers fans all seem to be in favor of canceling the season completely. The Warrior fans generally are in season, they want to cancel the season too. So it's an interesting way that you see the various pluses and minuses of the teams, and a lot of pluses and minuses for the players. Guys who are on their last contract are just sitting there saying, wait a minute, I was planning on the last 20 games setting my pay rate for next year. They may not get a chance to see that. We may see an abbreviated playoffs. Maybe there won't be, as many games in the first couple of rounds of the playoffs. And then also you're playing the playoffs maybe in neutral stadiums. Maybe you're playing them. You're probably playing them without fans in the stands. I like the proposal that every franchise could have one fan be in the stand. We could put Jack out there on the half court line and have him be our fan, or Flea or somebody like that. Drake could obviously
me. What about me?
Or you could for charity, you could raffle it off. It would be one hell of a charity contribution, $5 million to be the Lakers' private fan.
Or as to cover it as a member of the press, me.
Yeah,
I like that idea better.
Well, Eric Pink has brought up the whole point that by the time you put the players from both teams out there, the referees, the scorekeepers, the medical staffs that have to watch the game, you're probably over 50 people already, which may be classified as a crowd, and therefore you can't even play the games at all.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is going to be interesting to see what's coming up. I mean, the decisions that have to be made, and the financial implications and all that, and that, what kind of salary cap they're going to be having to deal with, and in the fall, or in the winter when the next season starts. You got to remember,
starts tomorrow though, after the last day of the finals.
Yes, it could be something like that. What about the Olympics? The NBA players not going to the Olympics now.
What Olympics? There ain't going to be an Olympics this year.
Well, Tokyo still seems set on trying to have a Olympics there. But I will tell you also that we talk about the Clippers, we talk about the Bucks, though I wouldn't put the Bucks as a distant number 3. You keep on trying to push them down at number 3. I don't know. I'm not so sure on that. But you know what? I'll give you
They're
that.
Vulnerable. They're vulnerable in the playoffs.
Okay, well let's see that. Let's see that in one more time in action. I'm
Giannis is not going to hit 5 out of 8 threes for more than one game out of 7.
You keep digging on that, but the rest of the team can hit threes. That's the issue if he can't. The thing is though, Golden State could become the best team out of all of it. It could be going, first to last to first again, because they all get healthy. Thompson and Curry and Draymond Green all back, with Wiggins, take it or leave it. But then you have also
Wiggins is trade bait.
Wiggins could be trade bait.
A trading chip. They just traded D'Lo, who was a trading chip, for another trading chip.
But you're not even sure if that's the case, because he doesn't have the greatest reputation in the world, so you may not be able to get what you want back for him. So if you keep him in there as your small forward, you've got 4 out of the 5 pieces there.
You don't need much filler to get a superstar when you got Wiggins, man.
Well, but I tell you what, you also got to remember, they could be also landing the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. So
good thing it's a soft draft this year.
It's not as soft as last year, after Zion. I mean, last year's, or this current draft, I should say, is pretty soft. I mean, it's almost like toilet paper soft, so to speak. I mean, after Zion.
Here's a trade to throw out at you that I think is interesting. You mentioned Brandon Ingram. How about Lonzo Ball?
Back to where? Not the Lakers?
Back to the Lakers.
Are you kidding me?
No.
LakerTom, are you incurring a fever? Or do you have a fever at this point in time?
It's an interesting idea. Lonzo is shooting 37% from 3. He's in the top 5 in defensive rating for guards. He's a great distributor. He throws pass. He loves the long pass.
Yeah,
And the Lakers,
I get all that.
when you think about what the Lakers need defensively, he's a perfect fit exactly to play with. And all of those people who basically said, that, the Lakers decided to keep Kyle Kuzma instead of Lonzo Ball. The only reason they kept Kyle Kuzma is because his salary was so low and they needed Ball's salary in order to make the trade work. But I don't think it's as crazy an idea because Ball basically is up now for a contract. And what kind of contract is he going to get? It's an interesting situation because I think Lonzo Ball is exactly the kind of player that could be a great contributor on a championship team as a third or fourth option because he does the little things that really are important. He's a great passer. He's a great defender. He's proven now that at least for 1 year, he can shoot at a good percentage, 37%. The Lakers only have two guys in the lineup that shoot better than him at this point from three. And one of them ain't Kyle Kuzma, I'll tell you that.
But he still has his free throw shooting is still atrocious, and
he's still shooting. Well, he's improved that. It's up to 57%.
Oh wow, that's awesome! And I'm being very.
And it's running at 65% in the last 20 games. So that's a dramatic improvement. I mean, LeBron,
you're reaching for straws, my friend. Okay, when you're going to say 65% is like a market improvement, okay, Andre Drummond, his free throw shooting is a vast improvement. Lonzo Ball, let's give it some time before we can say it's a drastic improvement. Plus, around the rim,
he's changed his outside shooting dramatically in 1 year.
He still has to get a floater, still has to get some, as far as driving to the hoop was always an adventure still for him. Let's look at the other side as far as
Did you see him drive against the Lakers over and over?
I saw him get blocked by Caruso. That's all I need to know. Yes.
Caruso's blocked several guys. I mean, that's one block.
Not like that with Lonzo. Not like that with Lonzo. No, that was one of the blocks of the year right there for you. That and the JaVale McGee blocks.
So who's your favorite Laker player? Let's go there.
Well, okay. On our way out, we'll go ahead on our Laker player. We'll go ahead on the way out. So before we go ahead on our way out, we just want to go ahead and say once again, we thank you so much for listening to the Lakers Fast Break podcast. If you have any questions for us, it's at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter, or please, you can send us email, old-fashioned snail mail style, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com. If you need anything else as far as to talk to LakerTom, you can go ahead and reach out to him today on Twitter at LakerTom, or you can just go ahead and be part of the conversation today. And LakerTom, before we talk about our favorite player, and one last little tidbit from the beginning of the show on the coronavirus that I want to go ahead and touch on before we head on out. Go ahead and let us know what the conversation's like at Lakerholics.net.
Well, it's an interesting situation because most of the Laker fans, it's funny, half of the contributors on Lakerholics.net are expecting the season to get canceled. And it's pretty much a pretty even split between the glass half full and the glass half empty guys. And that's usually the way it is on the site, although none of the glass half empty guys are downers in that sense. They're just what we would call more realistic people. And on the same token, most of the half glass full guys aren't really wild homers. They're also just people that generally tend to look on the bright side of things. So there's been a lot of talk about the coronavirus. People are very interested in that. We've sort of dropped the veil on politics for the moment, just because of the seriousness of the situation facing the country. And we've limited the politics to be what's happening with respect to the virus and how the government is responding to it and so forth. Been a lot of talk about how the Lakers, almost everybody feels a certain terrible regret at the possibility that we might be denied an opportunity to win our 17th championship right at a moment when we broke through and had our best weekend and dominated the Clippers and dominated the Bucks. And the unfairness of it when LeBron finally got this chance to really show that he should be the MVP in the league, that may get taken away from him, and that weekend, that great weekend and the great climb through the standings to get to the top could all be, to no avail. So there's a sense of being, a terrible injustice that goes along with the tragedy that we're all suffering from the coronavirus. A lot of talk about people just telling everybody else to stay healthy and stay happy, and and make sure that your family's safe, and don't go out and do dumb things. Basically realize that even if you're young and unlikely to have a serious bout with this injury, with this illness, that you could be a carrier and a spreader, and nobody wants to have that on their shoulders. I mean, just look at the response that the world has had to anybody who spreads the virus. I mean, you just don't want to be that person. So it's a good time. I'd have to say that traffic is down, obviously, same as it is everywhere else. But the one thing that's good about it is that everybody's still showing up at some point in time, simply because they don't have the other social outlets to go out there and talk about it. You can't go to the bar and can't go and have dinner with a bunch of friends and talk about the Lakers and catch up on all the things that are happening. So now's the time when you want to be able to go to Lakerholics.net and or to play a podcast from one of Gerald's podcasts and get your social interaction and be able to make your points and have your takes and in as safe a possible way as you can.
We've been talking about a lot of things on the Pop Culture Cosmos about films that we haven't seen in a long time that we wanted to go ahead and bring back up and dust off and just go ahead and check it out one more time. A lot of people going back into reading books. I mean, my co-host, he has a great book out there, so you got to check it out. If you want to check our show out, Pop Culture Cosmos, he details his book out in great detail. And there's so many other things you can do. Board games. My family and I played a board game the other night, so we haven't done in a long time. So there are a lot of things to do in this time. Just do it together, right? Stay isolated, stay indoors, just try to do what you can to prevent the spread of this virus from getting any bigger. Don't play golf. Don't hang out at the local Dutch Brothers coffee store. Just come on, think more sensibly about this.
If you play golf by yourself, that actually, considering the lack of density or the lack of density on a golf course, is actually pretty good.
Well, and the sun is what's the UV rays are considered one of the best sanitizers that are out there. But when you're playing with 5 other people in 2 golf carts,
that's not good. I mean, even when I did my run this morning, I basically made sure to stay on the other side of the path whenever I passed anybody.
And you can
still tip your cap and smile and say hi.
Yes.
But generally, same thing. Yesterday, I went and picked up something to go, and while I were fixing it, I immediately went in the restroom and washed my hands for 2 minutes, just to make sure. So you got to do what you got to do, but there is something also to what you said about spending time with your family and so forth. My wife actually feels like this is the first chance that she's had to really spend time with me in a while, because there hasn't been a sporting event on. So she says, this is great. We can sit here. And so we're looking at like 6 or 7 movies. What are we going to watch? And, we get to snuggle up on the couch and spend some time together. That yesterday was our 54th anniversary.
Oh, well, congratulations.
So, we forego the anniversary presents because neither of us wanted to go out shopping. We each stocked cards and basically exchanged cards, and it was nice. It was a quiet day, and I miss my grandkids and my son, who live right next door. But since the kids are sick, they basically have quarantined themselves from coming down to us. So it's but there is something to the getting back to nature, if you will, or getting back to not having all of those extraneous things that we seem to have to multitask with in order to make it through the day. Now what we've got to do is to figure out how you can go back to some of the roots of the things that really build relationships. And so there's, I guess I'm one of those fools who always is trying to find the silver lining in every cloud. And that's one of the silver linings, along with Trump going down.
Always got to put that in there. I swear, people, when I started out this show, I didn't want to be political. I swear. But anyways, you got to catch the conversation today at LakerHolics.net. You never know. You might even see a picture of me from the Las Vegas Review-Journal that I just found out while we were talking on today's program. You know what? Actually, I'll actually put that as the header, as the imprint and the footprint right there for you on the podcast.
Okay,
Go ahead and
great.
give me the link, because there actually was a video interview of me waiting in line for 2.5 hours at Costco this morning. So
Oh my God!
it just it's right there for you. But
I went to order some stuff online from Amazon, and everything I wanted was sold out.
Well, but I will say this. At least I was wearing a Lakers hat.
Good for you, man.
Right
Good
there.
for you.
Right there. And my Lakers jacket, of course. In fact, you can actually see me not only as a close-up, but you can also see me in the distance as well. And you can actually hear my thoughts on what's going on with all this mess. But yeah, I'm in the LVRJ. If you want to go ahead and check it out, I'll put the links in the actual comment section of this podcast. So go ahead and check it out. And then plus, I'll throw it out there on LakerHolics.net. What can I say? Laker pride. But before we head on out, speaking of Laker pride, I want to go ahead and ask you, my friend, before we head on out, your favorite Laker of all time.
Oh, of all time. You pulled a switch on me there.
No, your favorite Laker was your favorite Laker, but favorite Laker of all time.
Well, I'm one of those. I'm one of those of the opinion that you can't compare players from different generations.
I didn't say who was the best. I said who is your favorite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's even favorites have to. So I'm going to have to break that down into 3.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's the way the rules run. My favorite Laker to start with is Wilt Chamberlain, because Wilt was the reason that I became a Laker fan. When I was growing up, I was always the underdog, and so I really rooted for underdogs. And the ultimate underdog in the early basketball years was Wilt. So I was a San Francisco Warrior fan, then I was a Philadelphia 76er fan, and when he was traded to the Lakers, I became a Los Angeles Laker fan. This was despite growing up in Southern California, listening to every Laker game, loving Chick Hearn, emulating and copying my entire game after Jerry West. I still was not a Laker fan until Wilt came along. So I got to give Wilt credit. Then through all of my formative years, Kobe Bryant. I mean, Kobe, every password I ever had in my life up until, 15 years ago had some form of Kobe's initials and number in it. He was a player that I thought was better than Jordan, and I supported it completely. I thought, it's why Kobe's tragic death hit me so hard. And the fact that, I've been coaching my 2 granddaughters for the last 8 years in basketball. One of the girls is probably going to be a great high school basketball player, and the other girl just finally came into her own in the last year of her basketball career in CYO basketball. And Kobe's adoption of the WNBA and girls basketball and becoming a girl's dad was something that I just really admired. I think his last 3 years after he retired were the happiest years of his life. And I saw him smile more than any other time. And I take that with me every time I think about his tragic passing. As for the third favorite Laker, it's LeBron James. I used to be very anti-LeBron when it was a competition with Kobe. And I used to be the guy who said, don't ever trade for LeBron. If he signs with the Lakers, no, he can't replace Kobe. But now that it's not a competition, you have to appreciate LeBron James for a million reasons. First is just the type of person he is and the type of game he plays, I tell you, I was more of a shooter than LeBron. I was more of a Kobe type player when I played the game. And I never hesitated to take a shot when I was open. And I always was a pass first player. A shoot first player. I respect LeBron's game so much because the fourth guy that I'd have to include in there somewhere is Magic Johnson. But you start listing Laker great players, and there's always a fifth guy. Then there's a sixth guy or a seventh guy. But LeBron plays the game, and the way he has elevated his leadership of the team during the transition here, and just the way he has grown as a human being, somebody that you just have to have the utmost respect and admiration for how he's handled his life and the various challenges. So let's include Magic, because those are the four players that basically I think have to be included in any discussion of who your favorite Laker is. At one point in time, every one of those has been my favorite Laker and will always be.
Well, that's quite a list, my friend. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of them. Although, Kobe is so beloved at this point in time, and, even though those latter years were kind of a little bit stressful for fans because, his shooting percentage, as his age went up, his shooting percentage went kind of down. But his greatness at times was still, very much prevalent. So I could see why a lot of people still to this day love him. We're so endeared by him and love him so much. And his greatness at such a high level for Laker, you could match up with any point in time with any Laker. Those 2-3 years when he was really on top, when he was setting the scoring records, when he was doing the 81 points, when he was at that level of achievement that really probably no other Lakers has ever achieved at that point, at any point in time. I mean, even LeBron's MVP year, like your MVP like you're now, I would probably say Kobe, even, at that point in time on his 81 point year, I think he was probably, even just a tiny bit above that as far as greatness is concerned. Doesn't mean LeBron hasn't been greater at some point in time on his own, but I'm just saying as a Laker, you just really can't go wrong with him.
Well, LeBron's only been a Laker for a couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, LeBron's, obviously one of the, everybody's favorites at this point in time, done a sensational job.
It's hard when you compare Magic and Kobe as lifelong Lakers.
Yeah, exactly. So I told you already that I loved Kyle Kuzma. I still have a great affinity for him, but it's getting harder and harder to appreciate his work at times because he can be so frustrating as far as overall play, but it is getting better, like you said, on other ends of the floor outside of shooting, which is obviously a good sign for Lakers fans. Wilt Chamberlain, just a great player in and of himself, one of the most dominating players of all time. I put him and Michael Jordan as the two most dominating players of their era. And it all comes down to maybe Jerry West. He's, obviously the logo.
Yeah, I built my game around Jerry West. I copied it. I used to go out and shoot with the sun at my back so I could watch my shadow till my shot looked like Jerry West's shot.
Well, there you go.
Hours doing that, man.
Can't go wrong there.
I got to spend to 5 players now. The more you keep talking, you're going to make me add more players in there, Gerald.
All right. George Mikan, you can always talk about him. He was everybody's favorite.
He was thankfully before my time, one of the few players who was before my time.
But I would probably say my favorite all-time Laker would be Shaq O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq Attack. Shaq all the way for me. I think he'd probably be my favorite of all time. Just the way how much fun he had, how much.
You're going to change your avatar on LakerHolics.net.
I might have to, but you know what, Shaq, you can't go wrong with Shaq. He's just a fun-loving guy. Just wanted to have. He enjoyed the game of basketball when he played. Yeah, he didn't practice.
Much like Kobe, it's been great to see Shaq's personality evolve into a much friendlier and very, very funny guy as the years have gone on.
Yes,
you appreciate it a lot more.
Yes, that's true. Well, those are my picks.
With the Lakers, man. I mean, look at I've got 5 guys. You always mentioned like 3 or 4 guys going through your list, and it's how would you like to be? I mean, now if you're a Clipper fan, you can only choose from guys that are currently playing. I mean, who else are you going to choose? What prior? Can you even name some prior Clippers?
All right, let's not go there. Let's not go there. It gets I'm sure the LakerHolics.net provides enough smack talk to the Clippers out there. Let's try and keep some decorum here. We're trying to be above.
Seattle Clippers sounds great to me.
we talk about getting together as one unit, one family, one type of species getting together, and then you got to go and talk smack to the Clippers. Not that they don't deserve it. I'm just saying you said it. So yeah.
Clippers are probably the only NBA team that would actually go to the White House.
Here we go, LakerTom.
I couldn't resist. Okay, Gerald.
All right. Well, it has been a great episode. I cannot thank you enough for being part of it. Again, if you have any questions, please let us know at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter or at LakerTom on Twitter. And also as well, check us out every Tuesday night at 9. We cannot thank enough the RTF Sports Network. Check us out today, rtfsportsnetwork.com, or check out any one of the great shows that they have lined up each and every day at the RTF Sports Network. And also the Discover Community Network. We cannot thank them enough for playing our show as well. Well, it's been a great episode, my friend. A lot of great talk, a lot of great political talk, I guess. Not exactly what I wanted to do, but it always ends up that way right now. And in a pandemic, what can you say? But still, a lot of great Laker talk. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to speak to me right here, once again, on the Lakers Fast Break podcast.